Hello viewers, I am Grace Mudupe Olajide from Top Notch Signature, and I'm using this platform to share with us the subjects of practice-based research and practice-led research. What type of research are they? In what discipline are they employed? Do you know that fashion designing and textile designing is not just all about the usage of fabric, accessories, pattern drafting, pattern cutting, fabric itself, cutting of the fabric itself, and sewing. It entails much more. The present educational system in most of our universities in the world today is now becoming more accepting of creative work and its existing practice and potential relationship to research and its reporting. For a better comprehension about practice-based research and practice-led research, it would be a very good idea for us to quickly know what a research is. A research is a process that deals with collecting and analyzing and interpreting of information, of data and information for the purpose of having a question or questions answered. Research can be done in social sciences, it can be done in physical sciences as well. But the point is this: for any course of study to be acceptable as a research, it must undergo some processes with some specified characteristics. And some of these characteristics are: the process must be controlled, it must be rigorous, it must be valid and verifiable, and also it must be critical and empirical. Research can be classified, and there are various means by which we can come to thorough classification. Number one, classification can be done by differentiating the various methods and means used in acquiring the information. Is it through observation? Is it through interview, group and focus discussions? And also, research can be classified based on what informs the practice, what mood, what inspires the researcher to delve into that course of study. And thirdly, a research can be classified based on the objectives of the research. Objective answers the questions of why, what, and how, and many more. A researcher can choose the number of objectives that he or she wants to delve into in the course of the study, as these objectives will guide him in his findings, conclusions, and the recommendation in the course of study. As we have delved with the issue of classification of research, and we have mentioned the various means by which it can be classified, the classification based on research objectives also can be classified again. It can be classified into two different types, namely, number one, applied research and concurrent monitoring. Applied research itself is a research design that seeks to solve problems and provide innovative solutions to issues affecting individuals, groups, and the society. It involves practical application to scientific methods of everyday problems. Applied research, for it to be done in an excellent way, a researcher will have to take time to identify what a problem is, and thereafter, just like in a traditional research, will have to develop research hypotheses and thereafter move on to test this hypothesis via experiments. Empirical studies must be done to give practical solutions to any form of problem at hand. Applied research also can be divided into three different types. Number one, evaluation research. Also, applied research can be divided, it can have a type or a form of research development. And thirdly, action research. Quickly, classification based on research objectives. Number one, applied research and concurrent monitoring. And I said this applied research also can have three different major forms: evaluation research, research development, and action research. We have made mention of the types of applied research that we have. And I said action research itself is a form of applied research. It's a kind of research that gives practical solutions to problems in businesses. And this solution points that business in the right direction to go. Typically, action research is a form of process of reflective inquiry that is limited to specific context and situational in nature. For instance, maybe an organization that really wants to move forward, needs to purchase a type of machinery, and they eventually consider, oh, we should rent and not purchase. And in another light, they might want to employ maybe an accountant. For instance, if it's an SME, small and medium scale enterprise industry, they might decide, instead of having another employee on our payroll, why don't we employ somebody that will be coming maybe fortnightly and working on our papers, like a kind of contract staff? And action will be taken in order to save costs and to bring the right moment and the right shape to the business. Creative practice as research. Creative practice itself deals with practicality in their chosen field. A researcher named Donald Lee Brown, in his work Creative Practice in Research, made us to understand that, and it's a kind of practice. Creative practice can bring about original and substantial contribution to knowledge. Creative practice supports participants' involvement in the sense that those people that are involved, their voices will be heard and expressed creatively in terms of their feelings and in terms of their experiences. In this kind of practice, it is not only the researcher's voice that will be heard. Participants are involved as well. Creative practice is a kind of practice that creates visual arts through music, ceramics, sculptures, printmaking, designing, painting, and many more. It's also a kind of practice, unique one, that gives broad perspective to the work of artists, unique work of artists, right from the studio to the work that they do as cultural producers, arts manufacturers, advocates, community builders, and also as well as innovators in a large creative field. Creative practice is termed as a research truly. A form of research that takes the nature of practice as a central focus is called practice-based research, PBR, or practice-led research, PLR. These are types of research that are being carried out by practitioners, maybe curators, teachers, musicians, fashion designers, artists, writers, and many more. Also is a type of research that often in most of our doctoral research program, they are being employed. We have discussed in details what a research is, different form of classification of research, And now to the real business of the day, practice-based research. Practice-based research can also be called PBR. It is an original investigation undertaken to gain new knowledge. And this knowledge can partly be by means of practice and also by the outcome of that practice. Practice-based research contribution to knowledge also may be in form of creative outcomes in the form of designs, digital media, performance, and exhibitions. PBR research and its significance, context can be described in words. We can have a better understanding of it in words, but the full major understanding will come, and it can also be achieved with direct reference to the outcome of that practice. So with practice-based research, we don't have to joke with the usage of the words and with the reference to the outcome. Just like the traditional research, practice-based research also makes use of research-based concepts, theories, designs, and data gathering instruments to structure practice. It is based on philosophy, skills, and values. But despite all this, it does not necessarily try to go with the idealized form of traditional studies. It is exploratory, and therefore it is embedded in creative practice. Practice-based research is purely a creative practice, and its objective is to actually bring about understanding the relationship between action and the response of the recipients on an individual basis. Still on practice-based research, in order to explore the research design, there is a need to make things as part of the process, like an artifact. And practice-based research, just like traditional studies, moves through processes like review of literatures, and also practical research design to answer research questions about intervention outcomes. Practice-based research also is a kind of research that integrates resources, research skills, and techniques into clinical processes. For instance, in the world of medicine, when they want to find out what is happening with the kind of treatment that has been given, what are the outcomes that are coming out with the intervention that has been given, practice-based research will go a long way to influence this research positively. It can be quantitative or qualitative. PBR uses a non-experimental and causal experimental research design, and the ability to generalize is of less concern when it comes to practice-based research. Practice-led research, like I said earlier on, is another form of research that has the nature of practice as its central focus. Its focus is to advance knowledge about practice, and it leads to new knowledge. And this kind of knowledge that it leads to has a kind of operational importance to that practice. PLR is the same thing as practice-led research, seeks to break down the barriers between traditional and creative research. And how does it intend to break down this barrier? By theorizing the research process as a form of iterative and cyclic web through which the process can move on by using multiple methods. It developed discourses that are not always consistent with the grammatical logic of academic language sometimes. But however, practice-led research can reproduce and explain what happens when an individual encounters things an event in this real world, in the real world. It is beneficial both to academic community, scholarly community, and the society as well. And it has been proven through the work of STELAC that practice-led research is a type of research that can be relied upon as a problem-solving approach or methodology. A researcher of late did an extensive work making use of practice-led research. His name, Sohail Dowdha. He was able to come up with an excellent work that results in an excellent outcome of XR documentary. The title of the researcher's work was Once Upon a Time in Palestine. He was able at the end of the day to come up with kind of outcome relating and showing to us how Palestine was even when he as a researcher was not born. It took him 5 years, and he was even able to come up with some other people that are outside of his discipline. He got people from engineering, he got people from industrial design faculty, he got people from various aspects of life. And at the end of the day, he got an award, and his work was displayed in one of the museums in Paris. Practice-led research and practice-based research both have their central focus on practice. Some use them interchangeably, but the fact remains that they are not the same. They have similarities and they have differences. And I would like to highlight and share some of these similarities and differences with us, viewers. Similarities: practice-based research and practice-led research. There is one quick point that will guide us to differentiate between these two. If a creative work or artifact is the basis of the contributions to knowledge, please do know that that research is practice-based research. I say it again, if creative artifacts is the basis of the contribution to knowledge, just know that it is practice-based research. And secondly, if the research leads to knowledge, primarily to new knowledge and understanding about a practice, that research is practice-led research. I say it again, if the research leads to primarily to new understanding about what a practice is all about, that research is practice-led research. Similarities between practice-based research and practice-led research. They both build framework for creating research-friendly culture. They are also the two engage ways of propositional form of language and communication to communicate research findings. They make use of propositional form of language, and the two also, they demand complex thinking capacity, because now it is the two, they are creatively embedded. So, and it requires that one should be able to maneuver and think deeply through difficult phases of the study. They are both different from conventional scholarly work and how they produce knowledge. And the two, practice-based research and practice-led research, speak of wider range of subjective experiences to broader range of audiences. They've both been used both in doctoral programs successfully. There are so many differences between these two. When it comes to a kind of language and experiences, less concrete or less form of expression than in PBR. Practice-led research has less concrete or less logical form of expression than in practice-based research. as it relates to language and experiences. Another difference is that there is an inclusion of creative work in PBR, but in PLR, which is practice-led research, it is not a must. Practice-led research leads to primarily new understanding about practice. And sometimes the findings that a researcher comes up with can be used for their own purposes, and the findings might not be shared publicly. Practice-led research also can take a more complex and angular surfaces. And finally, as it relates to the difference between these two methods of creative work, there's an open textual usage of words. Open textual strategies are being deployed in practice-led research. Viewers, with all that we have been able to cover in these few minutes, I have no doubt that you now have a better understanding of what a research is, what it takes for a study to be acceptable as a research, the various forms of research that we have in creative works, their examples have been shared with us, and how we have come to realize that in this present world, especially in the last 2 decades, it's been accepted as a kind of research that can be used to improve knowledge and bring about friendly research culture. Thank you and keep fit.